Fathers Who Bother is made possible in part by the contributions of listeners like you. To support Fathers Who Bother, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Fathers Who Bother and become a monthly subscriber today. On the next episode of Fathers Who Bother, I speak to producer Sean C. about being a single dad as a 19-year-old in Harlem, which legendary rapper his son didn't like, his love-hate relationship with his father, and why he considers his son to be his best friend. Check it out. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fathers Who Bother, a podcast for men who are dad as we want to be. I'm your host, Jerry Barrow. My next guest is a native of Harlem, USA, and an accomplished DJ, record producer, and A&R. He is one half of the production group duo Grind Music and co-founder of the legendary X-Men Executioners DJ crew. As an A&R at Loud Records, he oversaw Big Pun's debut, Capital Punishment, and was the executive producer of Dead President's Let's Get Free, just to name a few. As a producer, he's responsible for records like Jay-Z's Can't Knock the Hustle, 100% for Big Pun, and more recently collabed with Black Thought for Streams of Thought Volume 3, Cain and Abel. When Sean C. is in the studio producing classics for icons, he can be found consulting for brands like Serato, Akai, television series such as The Get Down and Luke Cage. He was an on-set music consultant for the hit Hulu series Wu-Tang and American Saga, as well as the Empire film Fatale starring Hilary Swank. But today we are going to talk about his role as dad. Please welcome Sean C. to the podcast. Yes. I usually add the applause in post, but yes, you can clap for yourself all you want, brother. I was just vibing out to that Streams of Thought Volume 3. And that Good Morning record is literally an alarm clock for me when I get, it's like, ooh, getting your day started with that is wild.
Yeah, that's a good one right there,
man. That's a heater.
Mm-hmm.
But I follow you on Instagram, and one thing I like is that you post a lot of cool pictures of you and your son. So I'm gonna ask you, when did you first find out that you were going to be a dad?
Um, shit. I was 18. He was born when I was 19, and I was stressed the fuck out. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, what? I kicked rocks all the way home. I walked all the way home, stressed, like, what the fuck am I gonna do? I didn't have no job. I was trying to, get the music thing going, and it was literally the first time that I didn't have a job, because I always had a job, even during DJing. And that's why a lot of things I've missed, as I always had a job while I was DJing. And then Fat Man Scoop was my partner, and him and I had just we had a record deal with Teddy Riley, and so I quit my job. And I was like, oh, fuck that. I don't need no job now. I'm good. Right? So I quit my job, and we were working on the album or whatever. And then the deal, we ended up not coming out. There's a bunch of stuff that happened between the company or whatever. And that was a period of time that I was just kind of trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And I ended up getting a girl pregnant, I guess, because I had nothing to do, so all I was doing was
so it was idle hands.
Exactly. But she was my girlfriend at the time. But I was, it was just every day, So yeah, she ended up getting pregnant, and at that time it wasn't something that I was ready to do. And I was just like, what the fuck? What am I? And she was like, and I'm keeping it. And what the fuck? So that day, I remember I walked home, just like trying to contemplate what my next move was gonna be. And I was like, damn, now I really got to get a job. We were DJing and stuff, but we weren't, we were battle DJs. I went down with the X-Men. We were the X-Men at the time before they changed the execution. Right. And there was no, it wasn't any money coming in from battling. So, and I wasn't making any money selling beats. We didn't have any money from record deal. It was just like, I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I didn't tell my mother, still living at home, of course. And I didn't tell my mother until she was like 6 months pregnant, maybe. You know what I mean? Yeah. I hid it from her for a long time. And only I told, God bless, man, I told Scoop's mom, who's like my second mother. I told her, and she's like, "You better tell your mother." I said, "I'm not gonna tell her, but you better tell your mother." And I would go to Scoop's house every day. We all, that was my best friend, so we'd be at his house every day. And she was like, "Sean, did you tell your mother yet?" And he's like,
Wow.
yeah, that was.
What did Scoop say when you told him?
I mean, he was just like, "What are you, what are you gonna do?" Like, I can't remember. It was so long ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, you're gonna be the first one with a kid." I was, I was literally out of my crew of friends. I
Right.
was the first one with a kid.
Right. So was your dad around at that time? Because I remember you said you hid it from your
Nah,
mom. Okay.
so my mother and father got divorced when I was a kid. I don't have any memory of my parents together. So they got divorced. They officially got divorced when I was 4 years old, but I think they probably separated when I was maybe 2 or 3 or something like that. So I have pictures and stuff, but I don't have any memory of them together. And so I was my father would come get me on certain days or where it wasn't even actually what, and it was never a I don't think my mother had the arrangement of you get weekends and or whatever, or every other week or whatever. It was never anything like that. It was just like it would be one day out the blue, my father would come get me for the weekend, and I'd go to his house in Long Island, and he'd buy me. Yeah, he would buy me. We would go like that would be the ritual. Like we would go to Toys R Us in Amityville, and I would be like, man, Amp, like, yeah. Yeah, we go to Toys R Us, right? And I remember the Atari 2600 had come out. That was when Atari 2600 was out. I was a kid, and I was like, yeah. So he bought me that, all these remote control cars. And then when I was ready to go home, I was like packing it up, like, yeah, wait till I get home. He was like, nah, that stays here. I was like, what? Because my mother wouldn't buy it for me. So I'm like, what? It stays here. He was like, nah, that's only for when you come here. And I'm like, I barely ever come here. As a kid, I didn't say that, but I was thinking that, like, I was just mad. Like, and I'm telling my friends I got Atari. They're like, oh, we're going to go to your house and play. And they're like, I was like, that's at my father's house, though. They're like, you ain't got Atari. You lying.
And how far away was your father?
My father, I was in Harlem, and my father was in Amityville.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, he had moved to Amityville, Long Island.
Right.
So, but my parents had grown up in Harlem on the same block on 145th between 7th and Lenox. Okay. So they grew up as kids together. They lived like, 2 buildings away from each other. So they knew each other since children. And my mother said, she's like, I never really liked your father as a kid, but I guess he always liked me. And then when we became adults, that's when he started taking me out for drinks. And I was like, oh, I guess he tricked me. And then they ended up getting married. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So with your son, when you, as much as you could remember, how did you adjust? Obviously he's born. Were you there at the birth, or did you wait? Were you at home? Like, how did that work?
I was there. I remember I got the page. There was I can't even remember what, this was back when people had beepers. My son's born in 90. Okay. So we had beepers, and she beat me with whatever the code was that, that she was going into labor or whatever. And her friend, I called back her friend, her best friend told me meet me at the hospital. So I met them at the hospital, and they I remember, like, I wasn't able to be in the room because she had a C-section. And I don't know now. I think you can be in the room during a C-section, but I don't know.
Yeah,
you were, but I don't know if it was the hospital or it was the time or whatever it was.
Probably.
But they wouldn't have let. Yeah, they didn't allow me in the room. So I just I was waiting in the waiting room, and I remember her friend came out and was like, "Oh no, I'm skipping a part." When she was I was in the room while she was going into labor when they were trying to get, do a regular natural birth. And then and she was like yelling at me and calling me all kinds of fucking names. And I was like, damn, like I'm just trying. I'm like, push. And she was yelling at me and all that shit. And then when they said that she wasn't dilating and I had to leave the room because they were going to do a C-section,
Right.
uh, I waited in the waiting room. My best friend came out and was like, "You had a girl," and I was like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "I'm just fucking with you. You had a boy," and I was like, "Yeah." I got mad happy because I wanted a boy.
You didn't want, oh, you wanted a boy?
I wanted a boy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted a boy. Yeah, so I had a boy, and so then after that, it was just kind of like, I had to, of course, accept. I had already accepted that I was going to have a kid, before she before she delivered. But then, through some circumstances, I ended up getting custody of him. So he stayed with me. We did something where he stayed with me for a week, stayed with her for a week, and I was still living at home with my mom. And then all the women in my family were kind of like, you need to get custody of him because, women, they know women or whatever, and they were like, custody. And I wasn't really stressing it. And then we made an agreement that he would, once he got to a certain age, I was like, he needs to know where he lives. Like him going back and forth is kind of like, I want him to have some stability. Yeah. So he ended up staying with me. I talked to my mother and was like, yeah, stay here with us. But I'm not going to be the babysitter. You got to take care of him. I'm not going to raise him. You got to take care of him. Only time I watch him is if because then I can't, so long ago, it was a period of time where I had gone back to school. And so I was in the new school for social research. So she was like, I'll only watch him when you're at work or if you're at school. And I literally had gotten a job the week he was born.
Oh, where'd you get the job?
I was working security at the Cloisters Museum up in Inwood, up there. It was like a security job that I had up there. Worked in a bookshop first, then security. Yeah.
Do what you got it, man.
Yeah, whatever. It was a job. And yeah, so then I was raising him, so it was just like a kid raising a kid. Kind of,
yeah. You know what I mean? I saw some of the throwback videos you had, and like the songs that were playing were like a timestamp of just how old you were, and like I saw how you were dressed. I'm like, damn, that's how I dressed in high school. I like couldn't personally imagine being a dad in 1990. Like I'm busy dancing to Chubb Rock and all this other shit. And here you are. You had a stroller and diapers and
what though? I never used to take the stroller. I always put him on the carrier.
Yeah,
women put on it. I would always have it on that. I never I had a stroller, but I never used to because I was like, I feel like a woman with the stroller. Like I always would keep them like on the whatever that carrier thing is.
I forget what it's called too, but I had one too.
Yeah, I used to, I would go to the store with them, all that stuff, like take them with me to the store. And I ain't gonna front, like I was getting mad chicks because of my son too. like I definitely was getting a lot of women.
Oh my God.
Because of Sean. Like, he's such a good father. Because I would always have him with me. I'm going to the supermarket. It's like, I always see you with your son. I always see you with your son. That was
my God. That was funny. So how did you, when you finally started making money from music, how did you juggle fatherhood and your career?
At that time, when I started, when I ended up getting into Loud, and then we did Can I the Hustle and all that stuff, when all that stuff started happening, and my mother saw the opportunities that I had, she was like, I'll watch him when you're, like she said, I only watch him when you're at work or at school. Right. But she saw that there was some things that it was really moving. But I would take him to the studio though a lot. Like, Sean knows Raekwon, he knows Pun, he knows, Fat Joe, he knows all of them because they remember him from when he's a little kid. He would be running around the studio. Steve Rifkin knows him. Everybody knows him because I would have him in the office all the time. And if there was like a time when I couldn't do certain shit or he couldn't be around, then I would, take him to my mom. Right. But for the most part, he'd be in the studio. Rem knows him. Rem she posted something about him recently because he has a clothing line and she was wearing his clothes. and she
Yeah.
posted like, I remember when this kid when he was a little boy running in the street, when I got my first deal, and now he's
Right.
he's a whole man. She's like, yeah, so
Facts.
yeah,
Facts.
he's a hip hop kid, man. He grew up right in the in the middle of it.
So as a hip hop kid, what did he think of your music? Was he like, yo, dad, this is dope? Or he was like, I don't get it. Like,
He understood, when he got to a certain age. I told this story to Chris Robinson. He said he put it in the script. There was a one time when I would always play hip hop in the car or whatever, and Public Enemy was like my favorite group. I was playing Welcome to the Terror Dome, and he was like, "This is trash." He was like, "Dad, he's whack." I was like, "What? You can't be my son." But yeah, he didn't like Public Enemy, but I understood that Public Enemy doesn't translate generationally. It's kind of like something that you had to be there for. Certain songs do, but because it's like, Chuck's voice is so commanding, but sometimes he doesn't rhyme. It's like noisy. There's no melody. It's not really about his lyrical dexterity or his lyrical ability. It's about the energy of what he's saying and how he's saying it. Right. So if you're not like in that moment, or weren't there for that time, you kind of might not get it. And then you got all this noise going on as far as the Bomb Squad's beats. Right. So he didn't really get it. Right. Then another album I remember, like a lot of Jay. I used to play a lot of Jay in the car, and I remember when he got older, he told me, he's like, "Dad, the first album." He said, "I remember you used to play this album all the time." He said, "And I liked it, but I didn't really get it because I was too young." He said, "But the first album that I started to get when I went back and listened to it was the Rock La Familia album, the Dynasty album." He's like, "That's one of my favorite albums." He said, "Because that was the first album that I was at the age where I could start understanding what he was really saying." You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So
what Jay-Z was saying, right?
What Jay-Z was saying, but right. Before that, it was just like, I know the beats are dope, and okay, if it's like some rap that you could really kind of understand, it didn't have double entendres or triple entendres, then you could catch it. But when he got older, he really realized how
did he take an interest in like DJing or producing or even rapping?
No, he never did. And it's funny, I had this conversation with him too, because I thought maybe it was my fault because I was so young and I didn't have a lot of money. And when he was a kid, when he was like when he was able to like reach up to grab the turntables, I hit his hand and was like, "Don't ever touch this," because I didn't have any money and I was scared that I would come home and he would break my equipment, and then I wouldn't, you know what I mean? And I couldn't really afford to, to get new stuff. I was right. Cherishing my drum machines and all of that. And I always thought that. I said, damn, I never really sat and taught him what this was. It was one of the things that I always kind of think about. And he was like, nah, he said, if I really wanted to do it, I would have just like done it, which is true. He said, I would have snuck in and I would have been, you know what I mean, going to the turntables and going to the drum machine. I would have tried to learn if I really did. So he never wanted to, but he's very much a people person and a dot connector and he's a, it sounds corny to say hustler, but he has that entrepreneurial spirit. So
that's that Harlem shit.
Yeah, that's what he does. Like he's very much more of an outgoing person than I am, and that's one of the things that I admire about him. Like he's, there's people that he'll do things in the industry, but I managed some acts and stuff like that, and just moving around and connecting people. And we're like, oh, I didn't even know that was your son. He's like, that's my man. Like that's my boy. Is that your son? Wow. And so I hear that a lot. Like, that's a good dude. That's my dude, man. I really like him. So he's really a good person.
Yeah, I peeped his Instagram. What's the name of his clothing line? I saw it. It looks really
God
dope.
to Goddess.
God to Goddess. Yes, that's dope. Yeah. So was that like you just said that you didn't really help him with that. He kind of just did that himself.
Did it all on his own. Like he never, Only thing he may ask me, which he recently was like, can you give me Rem's number? But he won't ask me to connect them. Like she'll just call and he'll call. She knows who he is.
Right.
Fab, Lenny, certain people like that. Like I may do some connections for him, but for the most part, he's doing everything on his own. He came to me with, he shot a promo for it for the for the line, and he wanted me to be in it. Mm-hmm. I just showed up. I had no, you know what I mean? I just like, okay, I'll show up. And then only thing he asked me to do was, can you put the music to the man. So I put Good Morning there and I edited it up to make it fit and
good choice.
Yeah, to go with the scenes. But yeah, he's moving all on his own. He's got all of these different businesses that he's doing and different aspirations to do a lot of different things. I'm proud of him.
What does that feel like to have a fully functional adult that you helped create? Because I'm just now experiencing it. My son is 18. He's just finished his first year of college. And just my daughter's 12. She's still younger. But watching him like open his first checking account. And like he just booked his own driving lessons. Like he just said, Dad, because I was giving him lessons last year during the pandemic, and I'm a horrible driving teacher. But he was like, yo, Dad, I just went and paid for my lessons. They start this week. I just wanted to give you and Mom a heads up. And I was just like, okay. But seeing him make these independent moves is like, okay, so I didn't totally fuck up.
Right, no, 300%. I see it more now because now he's 31, so he's like he's a full man. He's not even like a young boy. You know what I mean? He's a full grown man. So I've seen from when he's in his 20s, seeing it go from me coming to the studio, like D-Dot'll tell you, like when he was 15, 16, me going to the studio and like this boy driving me crazy, man, driving me crazy. To like him getting to his 20s, going to when we went to college, he called me and was like, Dad, I understand everything that you did. I just want to say thank you. And he's like, and I know when I was giving you hell, he's like, I apologize for that. He said, he's like, and I'm thankful for all of the stuff that I complained about when I was a teenager, because a teenager, you just like, you complain. And I thought me being a young father, thinking I'm probably the coolest father out of all his friends because I'm doing music, and him knowing that I raised him like that, he was there with me, that I wasn't gonna have any problems because he knows. But teenagers are gonna be teenagers, and that's the thing that I realized. You know what I mean? Like he didn't do a lot of, he did what you do, you know what I mean? Smoke, get caught smoking, cut school, like that kind of shit. But I would, because of the job because of self-employed, what have you, I would just pop up at school every blue moon and just walk into his class and like, where is he? And like a couple times he was cutting class and like, oh, he went to the lunchroom, but that was like 20 minutes ago. I'll go down to the lunchroom, they were like, he'll be talking, like, yo, your father's standing right there. No, like, get your ass back to class. And he'll be, super embarrassed and, he'd be pissed about it. And then I had him in an after school program. I know I'm kind of going on a tangent.
No, you're good.
Building up. But I had him in an after school program as well. And he wouldn't go to that. And I would drive around and find where he was and take his ass to the program. This is when he is like, that age when you're between 14 and 17, when you just kind of thinking you the shit, And so he thanked me for all of that when he went away to college, because that was the first time that he was on his own. He kind of started to understand certain things that you have to be responsible for, whatever. And he thanked me, and he was like, and especially those times when you would like find me, because I was about to do dumb shit. He's like, those were the times when I was gonna get into some shit. And he said, even if you didn't show up, he's like, my boys would be doing dumb shit or whatever. And I might do something when he's like, I'll do that, but I ain't doing that. You know what I mean? Like, like, he's like, I would see your face. And I'm like, you know what? all right, y'all cool, I'm cool. I'm cool with doing this, but I ain't y'all going too far now. It's just like house party where he was like, y'all gonna burn the house down? He's like, burning house. He's like, I thought we were just gonna beat some people up. He's like, nah, burning house. He was like, that was like the perfect analogy to like how it was. So now that he's, then when he got in his 20s and it was great to be able to not have to, tell him, don't touch that, don't touch this. Don't, when you're a kid, that's you get fatigued when you have a small child. It's more physical fatigue from like running around after them. Then when they become a teenager, it's just mental fatigue because you're trying to figure out how to make sure that they do the right thing. You got them in the right school, they're around the right people. They're not, you just worry that they're gonna, especially a black kid, a black boy child, you know what I mean?
Yes.
They're gonna, be, you don't know if the cops is gonna fuck with them. You don't know, there's so many things that go into your head that you have to worry about as a teenage, when you have a teenage boy.
Yes.
So when he got into his 20s, it was like, oh, we got past all of that. I kind of felt good. But my son always, the other level of it, my son was sick a lot since he was born, because he had really, really bad asthma. So I've always been in the hospital with him. And then when he turned 15, he got diagnosed with diabetes, type 1 diabetes. So he's insulin dependent. So there was like, that was a whole nother level of like parenthood and fatherhood that I had to deal with and learn medications and always be at the doctor and talk to the doctor. So that's why our relationship is so tight the way it is, because I went through all of that shit with him. You know what I mean? Spending the night in the hospitals for weeks at a time, and because he would be in intensive care for asthma.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So now that he's a grown man and he got old, it's like he's like my best friend. You know what I mean? Like we talk all the time about just regular shit. Like as if if something happens for me, you know how like you accomplish something, I call him a lot of times. Like I'm doing this Wu-Tang thing. I want you to come by the set and see it. This is because that was my first TV film thing that I had done, and come by set. It was just like when you tell your boy, about something that you're proud of yourself for doing.
That's dope. That was going to be one of my questions. Like, is there a career milestone that you shared with him, and that was specifically that must have felt great.
Yeah, for him to be on set and see all of the things, and then he was like, "Yo, Dad," they was just like calling you on the walkie-talkies. I was hearing your name on it, like, "Where's Sean C? We need Sean C on set." Or where's he? He's like, "Yo," he was just like really, he was really impressed by it. I think,
That's dope. I love it. So I saw a post where you said, and my condolences on the passing of your father. You said, "I'm glad that we got to reconnect or resolve the issues." When did that happen?
So my father died a long time ago. My father died in 2000.
Okay.
Right? So over 20 years ago.
Okay.
But like I said, I would only go to his house every once in a while, right? And when I was a kid, before I became a teenager, I saw him a lot. Once I became a teenager, I rarely ever saw my dad, right? So when I became a father at a young age, I thought when I turned 21, I was like, that was a real stressed out period for me, because I was working this job. I got this kid. I don't know if this music thing is like, I'm just like, am I just gonna be a fucking security guard? And I just turned 21 and I'm a man now, and I got this kid, it's just a lot of shit. So I thought maybe my father could give me some insight. So I was like, maybe I'll see him, spend some time with him. Ended up, he had moved to Virginia. I went to his house. And it was just like a whack ass weekend, because I felt like, and in hindsight, I understand now, as a father, regardless if you're there or not, you want to try to instill, you're still trying to father regardless, right? So I felt like I don't really know you like that, right? I mean, you weren't really always around, and he just kept saying, "Oh, when you're doing that music thing, that's a fad." That's just when your parents were telling you that rap was a fad.
Yes.
Right? Like, that's a fad, that's gonna go away. You need to go back to school. Then he's correcting my English. There's no such word as ain't. There's no, you know what I mean? like it was just a lot of that going on.
Mm.
And that was all I saw at that age and at that period of time. So it was like a whack weekend for me. I was like, man, fuck this nigga, man. And we didn't speak again. So I was 21. So this 2000, it was 91, right?
Okay.
And so we didn't speak again until 2000,
Wow.
right? He sent me a letter and just said, we might have spoken, maybe we spoke, but I don't remember it, right? But we didn't really have contact because after that, I was like, man. Then we had in 2000, he sent me this letter, sent me the house, and he was like, I wish things could have been different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm up. Now I'm like, Pun had just died actually. Pun died the same year my dad died. So I had been doing a lot of stuff that I've been doing, and I was still kind of fucked up over Pun dying. And I was like, I flew right out to his house the next day. And I just sat with him. And I took my son with me too. I took Sean with me. And he got to see his grandson again because I took him with me the first time we went there. And I got to see him older. And we just hashed everything out. And I just asked him things what went on with you and my mom, what went on, like just a bunch of those questions that as an adult now you can understand and I could hear the other side of the story. And as a father, I told him how I felt. I was like, this is how I feel about, what went on. And, he apologized and we just got everything out and we became, then after that, I spoke to him every day until he died. So we kind of fixed things right at the end. And I went back home and spoke with them. And then I got busy I was talking to him like every day for a couple months. And then for like 2 weeks, I got busy and didn't speak to him. And I was like, dang, let me call my father. And he didn't answer the phone. I'm like, what the fuck? And I found him in the hospital. He was dying in the hospital and he didn't want anyone to know. He didn't want to. And I flew out back to Virginia and because I found on the phone, he was like, yeah, he's in this. I called all the hospitals. Like, he's in this hospital. Found him in the hospital and he was in the bed. Like, and he looked at me like, oh shit. I was like, yep, I found you. He wasn't really speaking, but he was just like, responding. I would talk to him and he died that day when I got there. He died a couple hours after I arrived. Like right with me sitting right next to the bed. So it was kind of like, yeah, which I thought was, I got to see him, the last breath and all that. So yeah, that was a
God works in mysterious ways, man.
Yeah,
he helped guided your hand to find that one hospital because the chances are I can see that as a movie. You
right,
because this is the 90s. This is pre-internet. Put this in context. You know what I'm saying? There's no internet. There's no cell phone. There's no, you going through the phone book or trying to track them down. So that was a minor miracle.
Yeah, it was dope. But we got to fix everything. And I always think now because it was still such a short period of time, there's still a lot of questions that I have because you can't think of everything, during that time. I was like, damn, I wish I could ask him this. I wish I could ask him that. So but I'm thankful for that period of time that we were able to
he was a military man. I saw the picture.
Yeah, he was a military man. He went into the military before like as a teenager. And he wanted to do it as a career, but my mom's was like, no. She was like, I'm not going to be a military wife. I'm not trying to go. I'm not trying to be all around the world or whatever. So he left. Right. And he left the military and married my mother. And then he went into the academy. He was a cop for a while. He became a police officer because he was an MP in the military. And then he became a police officer. And then he went into the court system and was like an administrator or something in the court system before then he retired as that. Yeah.
You had given a shout out to one of your uncles. Talk to me about the other adult men in your life. Because that's another important aspect because sometimes when we don't have our biological fathers in the picture, other men step in. Like who were some of those men in your life that you had?
My Uncle Charles and my Uncle Sinclair, but more my Uncle Charles. He's like my uncle father. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how I look at him. He's the one he's the man He's the oldest man in my family, right? Oldest person in my family, actually, right now. He's 85,
Mm,
but he looks like he's 65 if you see it.
nice.
And he's like always fresh. He's always like, his whole thing is he always got a suit jacket on or like some hard bottom shoes. Like, and he's a good looking guy. He's somebody that, you know, you look at and you aspire to be. He's charismatic. And he's always been, he's probably the man that was around that I saw the most. But for the most part, I was raised around women because he was still, you know, when I was a teenager, he was off doing his own thing. You know what I mean? So I didn't even see him that I didn't see him that much, but he was the man in my family. And then on my father, that's on my mother's side. On my father's side of the family, the picture that you're talking about is my Uncle Kenneth. So we all, everybody's from Harlem. We all grew up in Harlem. So he was a guy, he was like one of the guys that my mother always said was the 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 guy everyone loved. You know what I mean? My Uncle Kenny is like the nicest person. He died last year, actually, during
Okay.
COVID. He didn't die from COVID, but he died during that
No.
period of time. And I had just found out. He died in April, and I think I didn't find out till like July or August or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, he was my father's. Him and my father were really tight. But yeah, to be honest, man, I was raised with women for the most part. A lot of women around me. Um, it was because there's more women in my family than there are men. And my uncle Sinclair, who died when I was 10, he was a super charismatic person. I heard him and Pup's father were tight back in the day in
Okay.
Harlem. So yeah, that's I don't I really was raised mostly around women.
So did that impact your parenting style? You know, what did influence the way? Because you were so young. So
Yeah,
mhm.
I don't know. I just was trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? As I went. That's why I, when I was 21, I went to go to visit my father. It was because of that specific thing. I was trying to get advice from a man. You know what I mean? To raise to be a father to another man. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right.
So it was difficult, but I mean, there's certain things that are inherent in you as a man that you do, and you know what I mean, and that kind of shit. But I was mostly raised around like a lot of us, you know what I mean, around women that didn't have their father around. So my dad wasn't. I wouldn't say he was a deadbeat dad, but he wasn't around for me as a teenager. You
Now,
know.
single dads exist for sure, but we don't hear a lot about the
Mhm.
single dads. What do you want people to know about being a single father that they probably don't realize or probably don't understand?
I mean, I don't know if I could say like being a single father. I don't know what I could. um, I don't have anything to really compare it to. You know what I mean? To
Mhm.
say like, because it's like, well, you single mothers have been doing this forever. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Right.
And a lot of times, I guess for until people really, you're like, oh yeah, I have a kid, or yeah, that's my son, and they don't really realize like, oh no, like I'm raising him. I'm not just like I don't just pop up. You know what I mean? Like
I'm not babysitting.
I'm not babysitting. He's not here for the week. You know what I
Right.
mean? But it takes a lot out of us if we don't have the maternal instinct that a woman would have as a single, as
Mhm.
a single mother. There's certain things that just come naturally as a
Mhm.
woman because it's maternal.
Mhm.
As a man, I mean, I don't know. I just figured it out, man. And I don't know what kind of advice. I don't know if this. I'm not answering the question or it's I don't know, man. I don't
I
know.
guess what makes me ask is, we've seen television shows and movies about single mothers and the things they have to do and cope with to adapt. And
Mhm.
while you've talked about it, of course, in the course of this conversation, I just was curious if there was something unique about the experience of being a single father, or if maybe it's just not, or maybe it's just single parenthood in general. Is
Yeah, I
there any?
mean, it's definitely something unique about it, but because I don't have anything, because I only have one kid. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I don't have anything to compare it to that makes it different than anything than a single parent in general. Like being a single father, I would just say the difference is if you have a boy child and you're a father, you can teach them things that men teach them how to be a man better than a woman could teach them how to be a man. You know what I mean? Like that part of it. But you know, if you have a girl and you're a girl dad and you're a single girl dad, that's a different dynamic. You know what I'm saying? So, and I don't know how to what I would say is unique that goes with just being a father. I think it. I mean, just being a single father. I think it's an asset if you have a boy. You know what I mean? Because you know what it takes to be a man and you can talk to them about certain things and, you know, and when it is twofold as well. You know, I was very young. So I'm still growing and I'm still learning. So all I could do is tell him the little bit of knowledge that I have from the 19 years that I was on the earth. You know what I mean? But as you get older, you start to learn more stuff and you get, you know, and you have to lead by example. More than anything, that's something that I did was I would be really, really, really cognizant of what I did around him, the way I spoke around him, the way I greeted people, the way I, you know, certain things. And I would say, so like your word, like for me, your word is everything. So that's something that I've always, always, always instilled in him. Like your word, keep your word. If you keep your word, it's relative to everything in your life. And you don't realize it by just saying that if you have that foundation of your word, it helps you not be late. And not saying that I'm not late sometimes because I am late, but if you live by keeping your word, it's like I tell you I'm gonna be here at 2:00. If I show up at 2:30, I broke my word. You know what I mean? Like people just think keeping your word is is just like the promise of like, oh, I got you, I'm gonna do this, but it's just relative to everything. So that's one of the cornerstones that I taught him, and I feel like, you know, it definitely that one cornerstone goes over male and female, but as a man, I feel like as a man, like that's something that is something a man should always do and should always keep his word, you know. So that was one of the things that I taught him. And I think that it's relative in his life. And as being a man, you have those things, you know, you play. And I never even played ball. I was always into music. I was never into sports. And my son was into sports. So I would always but I took him to basketball, took him to football. He was in, you know, hockey. He was in I took him to put him in like every sport because I wasn't in sports. Like just I guess those things that are inherent as a man that sometimes you may not be able to put your finger on, and especially as a young father, you may not even, you know, be aware that you're doing certain things because you are a man or you're a male.
I used to like to play in my dad's closet. With being so close in age, did you have to keep him from trying to wear your stuff?
Oh, bro. That because then, you know, my son's bigger than me as well. And so when he was my size by the time he was a teenager, we was wearing the same size shoe. Yo, then his feet got bigger than me. One time I'm in my house, I'm looking for my Gucci sneakers. I'm like, wait, I was like, yo, I put these shits right here. I haven't even worn these yet. I was like, they were here. Like, where are these fucking sneakers? I'm looking at all the closets for days. I'm looking. I would have my shoes in storage too downstairs in the base. I'm like, go down and say, maybe. I said, no, I just bought these. I'm looking for them. Looking. One day I come home, they're sitting in the living room. I'm like, and then I look at them and they've been worn. I never wore them. I didn't even wear them yet. I was like, yo, I went and he got a punishment for that. Like he was like, yo, and it's funny to hear those stories later on because about the stuff that I didn't catch. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
Like he was like, yo, he said, you know, on one of his birthdays, all of his boys were there, right? And he was like, so this goes beyond the sneaker thing. First, the sneakers, and we finished that sneaker story. I was like, Sean, you don't even wear my size anymore. He's like, yeah, I wore him to school. He's like, I was fresh though. He's like, I wore him to school. So you squeezed he was like 2 sizes bigger than me. You squeezed your feet, must have been killing you. He's like, I was fresh though. So then we talked about that when he got older. And then he told me another story, which happens to everybody. But I had a Porsche truck, right? At one time. He said, no, not the Porsche, not the Porsche. When I had a BM, right? And his boys told me, and this was a story, I just found this out like last year. And they did this when they were teenagers. He was like, yo, can I tell him the story? His boys were like, yo, can I tell him the story? And he was like, yeah, tell him. I was like, what story? He's like, yo, one time you went to LA and Sean called like, yo, he left the keys on the counter. I got the keys to the BM. He was like, yo, we were like 15. He's like, we were driving around Harlem in a 7 and we got pulled over. And they're like 14, 15 years old, all piled in my car playing music. And he's like, we got pulled over like on St. Nick, I think. And I was like, well, how did you get out? I was like, apparently you got out of it because I've never heard this story.
Right.
And he's like, I don't know what Tariq said to the cops, but Tariq's mouthpiece, like he just knew what to say. He was like, when we got pulled over, I was like, I'm dead. He was like, he's like, it's over for me. He's like, my life is over right now. And whatever happened, whatever Tariq said, yo, he got them out of that situation because I never heard about it. They just told me this like last year, 2 years ago.
Because you never got a ticket, you never got nothing. It was
nothing.
Just like
he's like, he let us slide, and I asked, he's like, I don't even remember what I said. He was like, but they let us go. He said we had the music blasting. He was like, and it was more of us in the car that was than supposed to be in the car. It was like they were squeezed in.
Did they even have a license between them?
They didn't have a license.
Oh my God.
I think he had Sean said Sean wasn't driving. He let, I think it's Tariq, he let him drive because he had a permit.
Wow.
He had a permit, so he let him drive. So they must have been like 15 or something like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that was an example of him doing that. And he definitely used to steal my sneakers and take my sneakers. I remember when everybody had all the Air Force Ones, when all the Air Force Ones was popping, they had all the different different colors. I used to have mad Airs, and he used to steal them and wear them to school. And just like we did, he was to go in my closet and take my porn. Because I'm like, yo, where's Booty Talk 4 at? I go in his closet, he got Booty Talk 5.
Oh my God. For me, I'm dating myself. It was The Penthouse with Vanessa Williams. My pop had a copy of that one stashed way up somewhere, and I don't even know what I was looking for. One day I found it with a bunch of other stuff, and I was like, so anytime I was in that house by myself, I was like, yo, wait, let me go. And I would try to put it back. I wonder to this day if he has to have known that I found that shit, because that shit got progressively more and more wrinkled as the time went on. And I know he wasn't looking at it that much. So I'm just like, what the fuck?
I used to do that. My uncle had a Playboy. I was really young. And I remember because when we used to stay at when I used to be at my grandmother's house, and it was in there. And every day I couldn't wait to get home from school so I could look at that shit. And then one day it was just gone. I was like,
so my son had a pair of my sneakers. I don't know where he got them because I hid them behind my speakers.
I'm sure. So your kids never stole none of your kids?
No, luckily my son, he's not a fashion dude like that. So he not yet. He just now wears my size. Okay. So maybe in the next year or two, he might decide, oh, let me see. But for the most part, we gotta still tell him, you need to change that shirt. It's too small for you now. He just doesn't care. He just doesn't. Fashion is just not something he thinks about.
Well, that's a good thing then. Now you save some money.
Yeah, no, we've definitely saved some money. It wasn't until
my son had the Iversons. I'm like, I'll buy you everything. I ain't got the joints you got. But you're not supposed to get a job. And then you will.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
that was he definitely used to steal my stuff. I saw a picture of him and he's getting married this year.
Oh,
Picture-
congrats.
Yeah, he's getting married. That's another ill story that I may be telling at his wedding. Oh, about I remember coming home one time and she was hiding in the closet when they were kids because they knew each other since they've been together since they were 15 and 16.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so it's dope that now they get married.
I literally just had Mac Wiles on a couple episodes before this, and he just married his high school sweetheart.
That's dope.
And I love hearing those. So he said, yeah, they were together off and on basically since high school.
Yeah, and that same thing. And
Mhm.
that's that is a great thing. And that was one of the things that I was happy about in their situation
Mhm.
because they were together since they were kids, but then they did break up. So they
Mhm.
both got to be able to experience other people.
Yes.
And you need to have those experiences and
Mhm.
then you get back together. So then you don't feel like you're missing out on anything. You know what I mean? So yeah, they get married in November, man.
Oh, you prepared for potentially being a granddaddy?
Yeah, bro, I used to run from everything, but it's all accomplishments. I used to, oh, getting old. That means you're getting old. You turn 40. Oh man, I can tell nobody I'm 40. I turned 40. I turned 50 last year, and you turn
God
50. Just
bless.
like a lot of people. My boy Raider, he didn't make it to 40. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mm.
uh, it's just like you got to be thankful that you get to these milestones and there's things you got to be proud of. Especially as a father, I raised a man who's about to start his own family, and that's something to be proud of. It's something to really be proud of. And then, once he has a kid, it's just like, yo, that's my grandson, granddaughter, or whatever. It's something to be proud of.
Beautiful, man. Yo, well,
Great
Sean.
hands, something to be proud of.
Yep. Yep. I earned them all. I earned them all.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's what it is, man. That's
Yo,
what.
Sean C, thank you so much. This has
Mm.
been dope, 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 dope. And I appreciate you taking the time out from your very busy schedule. Anything you want to let the people know you got coming up
Yeah, we got on July. Is this gonna? I don't know when this is airing, but
next week, next Wednesday.
okay. So yeah, July 4th, we have. I just did a song with Omos Keith and Black Thought for the Dick Gregory documentary that's going to be on Showtime on July 4th. It'll be at Tribeca Film Festival. For Juneteenth, it's going to premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival, and
Dope.
then on Showtime, it'll be on Showtime July 4th. Yeah, and it's
Dope.
called The One and Only Dick Gregory, and it's about his entire life. So we have a song in the film. And I'm working on. I just finished working on Power Book 3, um, Raising Canaan.
That's
Uh,
what's up.
I was a consult on that. I taught all the dudes how to not all. Well, there's a rapper in the show,
Okay.
so I produced a song for him as well as coached him through rapping and making sure that he was able to spit correctly and he looked right. And I'm actually in a scene on the show as well, playing
Dope.
the DJ. Yeah, and then I have Queens, which is a show with Naturi, Brandy, Eve. It's on ABC, coming on ABC in the fall. So
Word.
I'm working on that now with Swizz.
That's
Um,
what's up.
yeah, so things are dope. Shout out to my boy
Oh,
Team. He's been writing stuff. We've been doing songs, and he's been writing the lyrics for a lot of the characters on for Power Book and for Queens as well. So that's what I'm
yeah.
doing.
That's what's up, man. Well, thank you, man. And we'll be looking out for that. And
Man.
congratulations. And congratulations to your son on his upcoming wedding. And
Mhm.
this has
Thank
been Fathers Who Bother. You have a choice in listening to podcasts, so we appreciate you taking the time to sit with us. And we will catch you on the next one.
Thanks for having me, man. Peace.